Welcome back to Tabletop Glory. My name is Graham Johnson, and today we're going to be talking a bit about a commission that I've been working on recently and some things that I learned by doing it. Now, by recently, I mean not so recently. I got this commission quite a while ago, and I've really had to break it up a lot more to break up the monotony of doing it. Now, I'll get you guys some close-ups of these stormtroopers here in a bit, but the paint scheme, if you've ever had to paint stormtroopers, is very monotonous. You just kind of do the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over.
5 minutes later.
And over and over and over and over. You get where I'm going. So, even though I've only had to paint about 20 of these guys, I've had to break them up into only working on about 4 or 5 of them at any given point in time. Now, if you know me, I like to do assembly line painting, and what that basically boils out to is I do all of a certain color first, or I do a certain thing first. So I might do all the pouches, I might do all of the shirts, I might do all of the helmets, but I do them all first, and then I do the next thing, and then I do the next thing across all 25 or however many miniatures that I might have. And that does a really great job at breaking things up and making really big projects feel like they're going quite quickly. It also allows you to walk away and come back and feel like you're making progress, whereas doing a single miniature at a time, yes, you get that burst of serotonin by finishing the single mini, but you come back and you still have a field of gray or a field of whatever base coat color you picked, and you feel like you really haven't made a huge leap in your progress. Now, you can also just finish a miniature whenever you need that boost of serotonin and continue to assembly line paint, and that works really great. But with simplified paint schemes like Stormtroopers, which are essentially black and white, that's not always the case. In the case of my Stormtroopers here, I painted them all white to start with and then painted the black undersuits. Now, that is a lot more detail oriented and requires a much steadier hand, and you have to really pay attention to what you're doing, and it has a lot of cleanup involved, but it's a lot easier to paint black on top of white than to paint white on top of black, so that completely shoots the way that I would typically paint in the foot, and basically requires me to paint every single miniature all in one go. And the monotony of that has been not enjoyable. I have had to basically break these down so that I'm only working on 3 or 4 of them at any given point in time, with a day's break in between or more, just because I have had to really alter the way that I approach miniature painting in order to not bore myself to death. Because I've noticed that when I start to really burn out on a commission of this caliber, that the quality goes out the window. And I cannot, in good faith, send a commission back to somebody knowing that I phoned in half of the commission. Now, fortunately for me, the gentleman who I am doing this commission for has been very receptive and is very aware himself about the monotony of doing projects like this. And I would like to say that yes, 25 miniatures is not a lot. As someone who has worked on a commission that had well over 1,000 miniatures in it, I've been here before, but I've never been here on this scale, meaning the fact that when I was doing the 1,000 miniature commission, I had a little bit of leeway. I could add some decorative accoutrement here and there to break up the monotony of doing this, but with Stormtroopers, they need to pretty much be identical, irregardless of who is under the helmet. And that is where the monotony comes into play. So there's been 2 big takeaways that I come off of this project with. Number one, finding a way to reward yourself to help break up the monotony. For me, I usually, typically, when I'm working on my own projects, will have another miniature that is like a reward miniature, something that's got a lot of details on it. And so I'll work on like 3 or 4 of the miniatures that I'm having a hard time just powering through. And then I'll work on 1 or 2 of the miniatures on, or 1 of the 2 of the details on my reward miniature. And kind of get that serotonin boost and kind of get myself back in the game. Number 2, like I've said already, is taking breaks. And those are the 2 biggest things that I've taken away from this. In the past, I have just powered through projects, even when I was burning out on them. And you don't realize how much you're phoning in the paint scheme until it's all done and you see the miniatures right next to the ones you've just done, like the ones from the beginning of the project versus the ones at the end. And then you start to realize how much you've actually phoned in this whole process. And that's not great. It's not good for your self-esteem. It's not good for the customer. And even if you're not doing this as a commission and you're just doing it for yourself, you're going to constantly find yourself looking at those end of the project miniatures, wishing you had done a better job. And yeah, you can always go back in and touch them up when it's your stuff. But if it's a commission, once it's in their hands, it's in their hands. Now, I do want to head something off at the pass. There is a Stormtrooper that you guys probably saw already had a bit of splotch across the helmet. I missed that when I was basing the miniatures, and I caught it in the video, and I've already fixed that guy here on my table. He's currently drying. But that's another thing that I constantly find when I'm doing miniature painting is years later I will find little details that I missed, like a grenade that never got painted or something like that. In fact, one of my favorite models, which is an Eldar model, has a gemstone in her hair that never got painted. And I painted that model about 7 years ago. So at this point, it's an Easter egg for other people to find, but it does bother me sometimes when I find something a few years later. And knowing that sometimes that falls through the cracks with commissions as well, it bothers me a little bit. There's not really a whole lot I can do about it, which is one of the great reasons why I like sharing commissions here on YouTube, because I will share the video and then watch it play back and see 2 or 3 things I missed before I can send it off. So I guess our secret number 3 tip is sharing your miniatures and sharing your work with friends. Stuff that you have gone blindness to, like project blind to it because you just look at it all the time, is probably going to stick out like a sore thumb to your friends that you're sharing it with. So feel free to ask your friends for feedback because they might see some stuff that you've forgotten about. Now, you probably noticed that today's video really wasn't focused on the miniatures, and I do apologize. I know a lot of you guys who follow me are followed just for the miniatures and not necessarily an informational video. However, I'm trying to start a new series where I'm going to be shouting out some of my favorite content creators on the internet, both big and small. Today we're starting out with a fairly well-known channel. Can you guess who it is? I'll give you a chance. It's Tabletop Minion. Now, his videos and my videos are kind of similarly formatted, so I don't expect you guys to have figured that out before this point in the video. Just know that he does a lot of back and forth with the camera, and it's a lot about just hanging out and having some hobby time and chit-chatting about the hobby. So I thought I'd do that for today's video to kind of homage back to them. Now, if you're not familiar with them, I'm going to go ahead and put all kinds of links in this video, both in the description as well as in tags at the end of the video, so you guys can go check out their work. They do some phenomenal content, and they are one of the first miniature painting channels that I followed back when I first got into miniature painting. The only miniature painter that you are going to see in this series that I have been following longer than Tabletop Minion
is Scott the Miniature Maniac, and that is because I have been following him since back during Backyard Effects. But enough about him, because we'll be doing a video about him very soon. In any case, I've been Tabletop Glory. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye!